Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. I'm Philip Boone, and I use he, him, his pronouns.
And I'm Caitlin Drake. I use female pronouns, she, her, hers.
Before we begin, I'd like to state that the views represented in this podcast are those of the individuals in this conversation and not the official position of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church. Recently on Ascends, we have been exploring ways to nourish our spiritual lives during the season of Lent through a number of spiritual practices. Today's conversation, the fourth in this six-part series, focuses on the spiritual practice of missions or service. Joining us for this conversation is our guest, Michelle Reagor, who will be leading a live class at Boston Avenue titled Improve Your Serve. Michelle is the Director of Development and Communications at Restore Hope Ministries, a UMC-affiliated nonprofit that aims to restore families in financial crisis to economic and spiritual vitality. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. I'm excited to tell you a little bit about Restore Hope and service and how we can improve our serve. My pronouns are she, her, hers.
Michelle, could you tell us a bit about the work that you do?
So Restore Hope is a urban ministry of the United Methodist Church, and we serve families in crisis, helping them to keep their homes and not become homeless. We help them with a little bit of rent and utility assistance. We have our food pantry, that's a food choice pantry to help families with dignity choose the foods they want to serve to their families. And then we also have a chapel program that helps share what we do and our faith with those who we help. But a big part of also what we do is to offer an opportunity for those in the community to serve, like Boston Avenue United Methodist Church, other churches in the area, and even people of other faiths and other denominations as well.
So my church history, I've encountered that different faith communities sometimes have a very different definition of mission from community to community. So the church that I grew up in had a much more limited definition of missions than I think we do at Boston Avenue. It was a much more missionary work kind of mindset instead of just mission work. Really, they saw missions as going to another country to serve in some way, often building houses, with the underlying purpose always of evangelism. And there were very little local or even kind of stateside service opportunities. So in your work experience, in your life experience, in your Methodist experience, these ideas of missions and community service, do you see them as interchangeable, as limited to location? Is missions always community service and vice versa?
Well, I grew up in the Methodist Church. I was a baby baptized in the Methodist Church, went through Sunday school and confirmation and youth group, and my children have been baptized Methodist and confirmed in the Methodist Church. Thank you, Philip, for that. And so my experience with church is only Methodist. I haven't had opportunity to explore other faiths personally, though I've studied them in school and through learning through even Boston Avenue. We have lessons about our faith partners. But mission work has always been about service to me. Missionary, yes, there's the idea of missionaries going out globally, but we can also serve in a mission locally. I don't think evangelism is always the end goal, but it is also a product of that. And that's something at Restore Hope. We want to help people regardless of their faith. We're not trying to convert anybody to Christianity, but we do want to share the source of our hope with them so that they have that. We can connect them with churches if they do choose that. We have Bibles we give out. We do include it in the work that we do, but it is not the end all to mission work.
Especially in my experience within Oklahoma, which is different than the community I grew up in around faith. There are a lot more churches here with a lot wider range of theology than what I was exposed to as a young person.
Even among Methodist churches, we work with so many different Methodist churches at Restore Hope, and I have been blown away at how different every Methodist church is, and they're even in this particular topic. So you're absolutely right.
So I know that some agencies that are faith-based agencies similar to Restore Hope make attending a worship service a requirement of receiving services. Are they kit and parcel, or is it kind of a here and?
At Restore Hope, nobody is required to attend a service to receive help from us. We are here to help the community. Restore Hope helps the community. And we do not require that someone becomes a Christian or proclaims faith to Christianity. If somebody has a different faith or no faith, we will help them. Part of that is tied into our funding. There are restrictions on funds that we receive. We cannot use them. We cannot require people to be a certain faith. I understand how that's important for some other organizations, but at Restore Hope, the work is the most important part.
Your class is treating service as a spiritual practice. What is the relationship between our faith journey and our community service?
I think community service is central to our Methodist faith. When I was growing up, it wasn't just church on Sunday and church on Wednesday, but it was the community and that fellowship in between. I'm from a very small town. We didn't have a lot of charities. And so our charitable work was neighbor to neighbor. And so if somebody needed help, you went and you helped them. And that was really our faith and our service. When I got a little bit older, I was able to go on some mission trips, as you call them, with my confirmation class, and got to experience what those larger charities do in bigger cities, and got to try that in a bit of a different manner, and had a different perspective on what that mission work might look like.
I want to tease out this idea of spiritual practice with service. Is all service a spiritual practice? Or are there certain actions or states of mind or processes that make it more of a spiritual practice or a deeper spiritual practice?
There are different tiers of service. You can have your daily service of loving your neighbor and helping those around you. You can intentionally go out and volunteer somewhere or help at a food bank, or you can go on a mission trip to a different country and do those big mission work. That's all service. What brings us back to our faith is when you do service because it's the right thing to do, not because you're seeking a reward or you're checking it off a list or you're required to do this community service for a particular status or scholarship, or you want people to think you're a good person because you're doing it. The most important part about service is just doing it to help, to be there for one another and to love your neighbor. The highest form of giving is that which is between you and God.
Can missions be a spiritual practice or a faith practice if there isn't an evangelism component?
Absolutely. We're Christians, and as Christians and as Methodists, we help one another. Not to say other religions don't, but that is central to what we do as Christians, is to help one another. And so absolutely, service is part of our faith and a huge component of it. Perhaps even the cornerstone of our faith is helping and loving one another.
I've been teaching a Sunday school class around some of the values that the United Methodist Church Communications General Agency has been rolling out. And one of the things that I made sure to root that class in is the actual mission statement of the United Methodist Church, which is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And so this idea that being a follower of Christ is not just about ourselves, it's about transforming the world. And part of that is how we love our neighbors. And so that doesn't mean that we have to make somebody into a disciple of Jesus Christ so much as we're transforming the world by being those disciples.
Absolutely. That's the same perspective that I have on it. Now, I am a lay person. I am not a minister or a pastor, and I'm sure Jeff Janes would have a different response to that answer. But I have the same feeling as you. I was a little concerned when that mission statement came out. I said, oh, am I supposed to be evangelizing? This is not something that I had ever done as a Methodist. And I'd always just loved as my evangelism was showing love and caring for one another. And so it took me by surprise, but I think you're right. It can be interpreted in a few different ways.
And I think at Boston Avenue, the Boston Avenue context, one of our core values here is that we develop mission partnerships as Christ's love in action. So that's very much how you personally experience. So you didn't have to go to seminary to arrive at the same place as the core values team, which had 3 people who went to seminary and a bunch of lay leaders. And I'd love to explore that core value a little bit more with you. As somebody who was on the team that helped discern those values, there was so much intention in every single word that was chosen. And I particularly, me personally, resonate very strongly with this idea of mission partnerships. And particularly because you work at an agency that is one of our partnership agencies, I'd love to hear a little bit about what makes a missions partnership as opposed to other thinking around missions relationships.
I want to touch a little bit on the love as action. We have the United Methodist Women, and I think that was a theme in the United Methodist Women for a while, was love in action, and thinking of love as a verb. And I use the term love one another all the time. My friends have said, "Oh, I like that, Michelle, love one another." I didn't come up with that. It's actually from the Bible, but but it's something that I like to live by, and just thinking about loving one another, not just being nice to one another, or, there's the friendship love, but love as a verb, love as action. And if we consider that in everything we do, everything becomes service. We're doing things for others, and loving one another, serving one another, that's what we do as Christians. The other part of that was about partnerships. Restore Hope is a urban ministry of the United Methodist Church. We were started by the Methodist Church. There's another urban ministry in Oklahoma City called Skyline, and it is to address the issue of poverty in the location where it is. So each urban ministry might have a different focus. Our focus at Restore Hope is on homeless prevention, hunger relief, and promoting hope for families. So with that partnership, we can't do that alone. There is not enough manpower on our staff and not enough dollars. And we as a community need to work together to carry out those goals and to help each other. So a partnership is just that. We each play a different role. So whether you're volunteering at Restore Hope, whether you are supporting Restore Hope with your dollars, or whether you are just praying for Restore Hope and also helping to address some of the policy issues that have put people in the position to need our help. So there are a lot of ways that you can be a partner with Restore Hope and the other United Methodist agencies and other agencies in the community as well. But that partnership is key. We're not individual entities. It's a combination of policy and community and partnership.
One of the things that I love about this partnership idea, as somebody who worked for a nonprofit prior to coming into church world, is the idea that within that partnership, you recognize that the people who are the boots on the ground are going to understand an issue a lot better. So because you are in the trenches, I guess, with Restore Hope every day, that you are going to have a much better sense of what is needed to address an issue than me, who's, not boots on the ground. That partnership is, I can trust you to tell me what you need, and you can trust me to support you in fulfilling what you need. So whether it's you need dollars, or you need blankets, or you need food for your food pantry, that we can understand. When I worked at a nonprofit, sometimes we would get very, very thoughtful donations that were not necessarily applicable. I worked with children, and we had somebody donate a bunch of muumuus to our summer camp clothing closet. Children and teenagers, the muumuus were not going to really be a good fit. And so that idea of partnership, of we're trying to listen to what you need, trusting that we can support the work that you're doing and that you're going to do a better job than somebody who doesn't know what exactly is needed right at that moment.
Thank you for that. It's really important to listen to what is actually needed, not just by the organization, but also by the people who are receiving the help. There's a great book called When Helping Hurts, and it addresses exactly that. We oftentimes will think of what we believe needs to be done, or we do something with good intention, and it's not actually what is needed, and it can actually do harm in some situations. And so asking the people who you're helping what they need, we do that as organizations. We take client surveys, we ask questions, we listen, and then we are always shifting our programs based on what the needs are. So for one example, we changed our food pantry from being a box of goods that we think they might eat to being a food choice pantry where they choose the food that they eat. And sometimes they surprise us by the foods that they choose. And we get requests for different items. When we opened our satellite office in Southeast Tulsa, we had requests for masa. We had never, ever thought of offering masa in our food pantry, but the clients were requesting it. So now we had that as an option. Another was non-dairy milk. This actually was an idea of a donor, and they wanted to provide more animal-free, plant-based options. And so they gave us a donation to maintain a supply of non-dairy milk for our clients. And that is always offered. We have milk to offer them, but then we also have the non-dairy milk. And So listening to those clients and what they need. And then same with our partners, listening to Restore Hope and what's going on with Restore Hope. Do we need clothes right now? No, we don't need clothes. We closed our clothing closet years ago. Having those ideas, do present your ideas, because sometimes those partners have fantastic ideas that can shift our programming in ways that, as you said, when we're in the trenches, we don't necessarily see. And so sharing that, it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not just us and you, it's a we thing and a partnership.
I absolutely love that there's the food choice element in your pantry. The empowerment and the dignity that is given through just very small things like that in a program change is so Christ-like to offer that, right? To recognize that when you are helping people, they are your neighbor first, they are a human being first, and to treat them with dignity and not as somebody who is just going to appreciate no matter what you do, right? There's just a person first element to that is, to me, so Christian.
Absolutely. And one thing in my class that I'm going to touch on are, at Restore Hope, we've developed 10 standards that we strive to achieve. And I'll just go through them. At Restore Hope, our 10 standards are: number 1, to be Christ-centered; number 2, to be welcoming; number 3, to treat others with dignity; number 4, be compassionate; number 5, be missional; 6, meet people where they are; number 7, help all in some way; number 8, choose quality over quantity; number 9, connect person to person; and number 10, be advocates for change. And I think that really brings together your previous question and what we do and where we focus at Restore Hope. It's not just the checks that we send to landlords to keep somebody from being evicted. It's not just the masa or the almond milk that we put in their basket that they have selected. It's more than that. It's being neighborly and improving our serve.
Like you just mentioned, your class is entitled Improve Your Serve. How do we get better at service?
Just like conversation, the best thing to do in service is to listen. You have to listen first, not just with your ears, but with your eyes and with your heart. To improve your serve, we need to be present, lead with love, and use love as action.
Something that has been on my mind personally lately is how church especially gives us the capacity to amplify our impact. This idea that I may have a limited number of dollars or hours to share, but that when it's pooled with that of others, that we can make a much bigger difference. Is that something that you see in your work capacity at Restore Hope?
How can you say no to that question? Of course. We see that throughout the country. As COVID has really brought our world together and our country together, we see that some of the needs that are here locally are everywhere. And so figuring out a way at how we can address those needs, not just everywhere, but locally, we can't do it individually. It's not enough to be the person that sweeps up the broken glass on the sidewalk, though we all should do that. That's something we do every day. But the bigger things, policy issues, preventing homelessness, alleviating hunger, that's not done by one person or by one agency. It really takes a collective to do that. One of the questions that funders will often ask is there duplication of this program? And some of those programs, absolutely yes. There can't be just one food bank or one food pantry. We need several, because what is another issue to food insecurity? Transportation. And so we need to think outside the box and address some of those issues. And it's through partnership that together we can do so much more.
Michelle, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I want to say thank you so much to Boston Avenue for all of your support over the years, the dollars that you've given, the time that you've given, your constant dedication to mission as well, not just helping restore hope, but by being missional in all that you do. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Michelle. We're so glad you joined us.
Thank you so much for having me. I love being a part of Boston Avenue. I don't think I mentioned, but I am a member of Boston Avenue United Methodist Church as well. So I'm not just here at Restore Hope, but I'm also a member of Boston Avenue. And I have 2 children that have gone through Boston Avenue Youth and through confirmation. And we come when we can fit it into the schedule of having teenagers.
Well, we are grateful to have all of you in our church community. Restore Hope is one of multiple agencies that Boston Avenue partners with. So for our listeners, please reach out to the church if you are interested in getting involved with any of our missions partnerships, whether on a connectional level with United Methodist agencies, on a local level with some of our local programs and charities, some of our statewide or national or international missions as well. There's also the United Methodist Committee on Relief, CORE, which is a United Methodist global agency that's a disaster response program. So there's more information about that online for any of our listeners who are interested in pursuing new service opportunities. Thank you again, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'd like to invite you to join us to dive deeper into spiritual practices this Lenten season. Join us in person or via Zoom Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. for our Experiencing Lent Spiritual Practice class series, where we explore the practices from these podcast conversations in community with others, or pick up a Lenten calendar, which is also available online. It offers a different opportunity each day to engage in spiritual practices. We'd love to be part of your spiritual life this season. This has been the Ascends at Boston Avenue podcast. Our theme music was composed and performed by Wyatt Smith. Boston Avenue United Methodist Church is a progressive historic church located in downtown Tulsa, Oklahoma. Please visit our social media platforms for more information on what's going on at Boston Avenue UMC. We can be found on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you.